So since we're all gonna be stuck at home for a while, I decided to make a top 10 list of the best films of 2019. I actually had to make this into a top 15 because there were just so many good films, I couldn't fit it into a top 10. 2019 was just insane. The strongest year for film since 2013 in my opinion. And since this video is gonna be pretty long due to this, I'll just get right to it. Written and directed by Tyler Nilsson and Michael Schwartz, Peanut Butter Falcon is one of the cutest and most heartwarming movies of the year. What further makes it special for me is that this is a feature film debut for both of them. And then there are these performances out of actors you wouldn't normally expect. Shia LaBeouf is amazing. And then there's Zach Gottsagen, who really makes this movie. He gives this film this charm, this Huckleberry Finn feel to it. It also reminded me a little bit of Mud from 2012 starring Matthew McConaughey. Yeah, just go watch this film. It's a nice, cute little film when you want to relax and just watch something nice. So this has probably been the most talked about movie of 2019, and rightfully so. Films like Joker are amazing for the comic book genre. I think it may have started with Logan and Deadpool, giving this idea that comic book movies aren't just for children or teenagers, but that they can be legit R-rated movies about serious themes like mental illness in this case. Joker paints this bleak, cynical picture of society that some people might not agree with. I myself didn't absolutely love it like some people who hail it as a masterpiece, but I definitely respect the quality of the craft in this film. It's really well directed by Todd Phillips, and it has great cinematography, from the use of colors to the choice of certain shots, and in combination with the editing in this film, which is unorthodox but brilliant. We often enter scenes through close-ups, and the film often lingers on close-ups of Arthur, which really makes its most powerful tool stand out. A central performance by probably the best working actor right now in Joaquin Phoenix. It has this theme of the 99% against the 1%, which is a pretty prevalent theme throughout this year. I just hope that in the future there's more films like this that push the genre into deeper waters and explore new themes. And I think this goes back to what Martin Scorsese said about comic book films being like theme park rides and not real cinema. Joker is real cinema, and we need more films like it. Taika Waititi wrote and directed this film, and he just proved that he's a really fresh voice in the film industry today. He filled this movie with great creative ideas. It has some of the most hilarious scenes of the year, and the highlight perhaps of this film is that both its child actors are just excellent. I've seen Thomasin McKenzie in last year's Leave No Trace, where she gave a great performance alongside Ben Foster, and in this film she confirms that she's one of the best upcoming talents right now. What was interesting for me though is Taika Waititi's faith in letting his entire film be carried by a child actor in Roman Griffin Davis, and perhaps that's what makes this film so charming. The film is filled with this concept of innocence and naivety inside these horrific circumstances and horrific environment. Although there were a few scenes in this film that I just felt that the tonal shifts just missed the mark for me and didn't really work, I would say that overall Taika Waititi is definitely a very, very talented filmmaker, and I'm really looking forward to his future projects because I feel like he's at a point in his career where he's not done basically polishing his craft, and I think that once he reaches that point, he's going to deliver a real masterpiece. Set in 18th century Brittany, Portrait of a Lady on Fire can be described as an artistic exploration of a forbidden love. The film is mainly based around its two protagonists, Marianne, a painter, and Heloise, a woman soon to be married to a man she never met or saw. Marianne has to paint a portrait of Heloise that will then be sent to her future husband for approval, and Heloise doesn't want to get married, so she refuses to pose for the portrait. And that's where basically the entire premise of the film takes off. The better both women get to know each other, the more they fall in love, and the more they fall in love, the more accurate Marianne's painting slowly becomes. There is no real antagonist in this film, or rather no character that could be described as such. The real antagonist is the system and the socially dictated roles that women couldn't escape at the time. The environment the film takes place in portrays this isolation that women often had to feel during the period. But there's also a lot of beauty and poetry in this isolation. The outdoor scenes of the film are beautifully shot. Almost every frame feels like a painting. And while the film does have a slow pace for almost 2/3 of the film, it really does reward your patience with a strong finale. I really hated what Rian Johnson did to Star Wars, but since he's still the man who directed Looper, I decided to give him one more shot. Knives Out is undeniably a testament to his skill as a writer-director. You can tell he loves the genre. The film is overflowing with passion, and perhaps that's what made it contagious for me as a viewer. The film is so stylish, it's filled with colors, as well as interesting characters, and it features an absolute elite cast, definitely one of the best ensembles of the year. Ana de Armas is just perfect in the leading role. Really excited to see how she does as a Bond girl. Speaking of Bond, Daniel Craig is hilarious in this film. His accent is so ridiculous, it actually fits right into the style of this film. And although Knives Out is not as unpredictable as it may lead you to think, it's still great fun, and I definitely recommend it as a film that everyone can enjoy. This is a semi-autobiographical story by Pedro Almodovar about an aging, broken-down film director at the twilight of his career, looking back and reflecting on his life. Almodovar really brings you close to him in this film. In every frame and in every dialogue, you can tell that this film is very personal to him and that this is his own personal meditation on life, art, and time. It's my favorite Antonio Banderas role ever. He delivers a subtle and honest performance. He's just this broken down man who, despite his success and the fact that he's literally flooded with fan mail and requests to attend various events, is depressed for most of the movie, and the only way to cope with this is using heroin. He wanders around to meet old friends, to mend fences, only to break them a few scenes later. And it seems to me that the scenes with all the dear people from his life, whether it was an old collaborator or an old lover or even his own mother, these scenes are full of life, or maybe not full of life, but just more lively and more dynamic than the rest of the movie, which to me feels like it's reflective of life itself in a way. This film really captured that for me, as well as the way it deals with artistic inspiration and how frustrating it might be for someone who has suddenly been cut off from something that has given his life meaning ever since he's been a little boy. And you can really tell that this is a very personal story for Pedro Almodovar, and the way this film is crafted just really reflects his love of cinema and how it can touch people's lives, whether it's someone older or if it's a little boy who just sees cinema as an escape from his life. I must say I was a little skeptical of this film. I feared that it was just gonna be this boring, overrated drama piece adaptation, and I must say I was so wrong. This film should have won Best Adapted Screenplay in my opinion, and Greta Gerwig should have been nominated for Best Director. The fact that Tarantino was nominated for directing over her just blows my mind. But to the actual film, Greta Gerwig is an actor's director. She really knows how to craft layered characters and how to get the performances from her actors. The film has the best acting ensemble of the year in my opinion. Everyone is great in this. You have fantastic older actors such as Laura Dern and Meryl Streep and Chris Cooper. You have this new generation of upcoming A-listers such as Saoirse Ronan and Timothée Chalamet, and probably the biggest rising star since Jennifer Lawrence in Florence Pugh, who for me was the most outstanding performance here, and her character actually the scenes with her character were the most memorable for me. I don't just want to talk about the performances though. This film is also beautifully shot and it has this look and feel of old Hollywood classics. I can't really recall a film recently that had this feel to it like Little Women does. And while this film does look like some Hollywood movie from the 60s or 70s, it definitely doesn't have a pace of one. It has a pace of a film from the 21st century, and I think that this is mainly because of Greta Gerwig's writing as well as directing. She manages to create this dynamic in all of her scenes, and the result is a great overall tone and pace of the film. It feels nostalgic but new at the same time. I would say that this is a flawless thriller. It really hit me hard. I had goosebumps multiple times during this film, and I even teared up a few times. The direction is just precise, the soundtrack is great and on point. The story and the people involved in the story, it's just so powerful. This is not some irrelevant story of the past. I mean, a lot of this stuff is still going on, and it's really a big reveal of our lifetimes. This film is about this one obsessed individual who has decided that he's gonna bring out change in the world. And it's really this story of David versus Goliath, and it has again these themes of 99% against the 1%, like I mentioned with Joker. The film stars Anne Hathaway as this wife who's really supportive of what her husband is doing, but even she realizes that what the cost of uncovering the truth can be. It really makes you question just how difficult it is in today's society to reveal certain things and to really bring these powerful people to justice. Overall, I just think that this is a brilliant thriller. I had tears in my eyes, I had chills during this film, and I think everyone should go and see this film because it really concerns all of us. Marriage Story is written and directed by Noah Baumbach, and it stars Scarlett Johansson and Adam Driver in leading roles as a married couple getting a divorce. This, at first glance, may seem like a strange and simple premise. The thing I did find strange is how the hell did this film not win every award for best screenplay? The entire film just feels so real and authentic. There is no attempt at forcing or overdoing certain scenes with unrealistic drama. The characters are insanely well fleshed out. Noah Baumbach really trusts his writing in this film as well as his actors, who give amazing performances, full of these subtle and vulnerable human moments. The result of all this is a film that feels less like a drama and more like an actual observation of a real-life divorce. The film doesn't take sides, it's really told from both perspectives, and when you combine it with great performances from both Scarlett Johansson and Adam Driver, it really makes for a complex study of this ending of a relationship between two good people who are doing their best not to ruin their son's life. I'm so happy films like this can still get made today. I wish it made a bit more money, so studios would have more faith in making more of the good old Hollywood movies like this. I really enjoyed this film, and I brought my dad along for the ride, who absolutely loved it as well. The film's enthusiasm about racing, cars, and basically just the battle of passion against the corporate system is something contagious, and it goes way beyond just this story. James Mangold said in an interview that this film in many ways is a parallel of the filmmaking process and the way studios and financiers often stick their hands into the creative side where they don't really belong. Christian Bale is absolutely phenomenal. He plays a role of someone we all knew at some point, a person with a high temper who easily makes enemies of people, but he's the only guy who can get the job done. Bale's character is a person who doesn't do it for the money or the fame, but simply because he can't imagine not doing it. Both he and Matt Damon have amazing chemistry in this movie. Matt Damon stars in the role of Carl Shelby, where he has to constantly deal with the corporate higher-ups and is forced to make compromises in order to keep both parties happy. The thing that I love about this film is that it has this universal appeal. Anyone can enjoy this film. It's not just for the mainstream, nor is it just for the critics and film buffs. Its themes and characters are relatable to anyone who has ever been passionate about something. And even though I'm not into cars or racing, I rooted for both leads in every race and in every dramatic scene. And basically after I left this film, the only thoughts I had in my mind was that they just don't make films like this anymore. And I wish they did. While The Irishman stands on its own as this epic, powerful drama, its real significance truly stands out within the context of Scorsese's earlier gangster movies. I think this is one of the things that audiences tend to ignore. I think the real reason it didn't meet expectations with a lot of people is because audiences expected another Goodfellas, and instead Scorsese delivers something completely different. This time around, Scorsese is no longer interested in the glamour of the gangster lifestyle. Throughout the film, this is reinforced in many different ways, one of which is the introduction of its characters with freeze frames, where their dark fate, basically a result of their criminal lifestyle, is revealed. This is in big contrast to the use of freeze frames in films like Goodfellas, where Scorsese uses them to glorify its characters.
See, Jimmy was one of the most feared guys in the city. He was first locked up at 11 and he was doing hits for mob bosses when he was 16.
While films like Goodfellas focus on the gangster life in its prime with all its excess and glory, The Irishman is more focused on the consequences of such life. Scorsese no longer glorifies it, nor does he condemn it. He simply lets us observe Frank's life and shows where it might lead. As the film progresses and this intention becomes more clear, the tone slowly shifts as well. The film becomes devoid of music and color, and the pace of the editing slows down as well. All of this reflects the life of an aging man whose journey is slowly coming to an end. Basically, a gangster who outlived his sins. And can we just appreciate what we got with this film? It's a 3.5 hour long gangster epic starring Robert De Niro, Al Pacino and Joe Pesci, and it's directed by Martin Scorsese himself. We're never ever gonna get a chance to see anything like this again. So how about we just really enjoy them for one last time? The Lighthouse has a very simple premise. It's about two men feeling stranded on an island and slowly going mad together while drinking, farting, dancing, drinking again, and even arguing about the quality of the cooking. From the get-go, Robert Eggers conceived this film to be shot in black and white on 35mm and a 1:19:1 aspect ratio, which has been last seen in the silent era basically. The entire film is designed with these stylistic choices in mind. The aspect ratio serves to create a unique frame, creating an enclosed and claustrophobic feeling. The choice of black and white film, in combination of unique filters and ancient lenses that haven't been used in decades, serve to emphasize the textures and surfaces. You can feel all the dirt, the rust and rot, as well as all the wetness. The features of the main characters are enhanced as well, such as their skin or their beards and hair. All of these elements, from the cinematography to the set design and costume design, surround our characters and come together to produce a unique tone in this film. And so if you're a fan of horrors and suspense and basically a film with a lot of ambiguity that raises more questions than it actually answers, as well as two actors delivering brilliant performances, Willem Dafoe just completely steals the show. I consider him to be the biggest snub of the award season. I think he gives one of the two best performances of the year along with Joaquin Phoenix's Joker. I've never seen a Safdie brothers film before, so I had no idea what I was getting into. I expected some decent movie with a great Adam Sandler performance, but nothing that would really stand out of the crowd of these, 8 out of 10 movies with a great performance, but nothing really transcendent or emotionally resonant. There's a lot of movies like that every year. Instead, I got the most exhilarating movie experience since probably Black Swan. Uncut Gems is just so unique. It works within its own subgenre. It's like this anxiety-inducing, stressful thrill ride, and it doesn't miss a beat throughout its 2-hour runtime. Adam Sandler is amazing in this film. As this gambling, hustling risk addict, it's as if he views everything as this one big game, where he's trying to stay one step ahead of everybody else. Ahead of the debt collectors who keep chasing him, trying to collect through the movie, ahead of his crazy sports bets that he keeps placing every time he gets his hands on some piece of cash, and also ahead of his wife that he's cheating on with his mistress. Adam Sandler brings this warmth, or maybe not warmth, but he simply brings this likability to the character that I don't think many actors can do that well. And just like the Uncut Gem that the premise of the film is based around, the film is full of these saturated colors in every shot and in every frame. Then there's the fast-paced, genius editing, which is largely responsible for the film's frantic pace. The soundtrack as well, this electronic 80s vibe score, reminiscent of the original Blade Runner film, of the Vangelis theme. It feels completely out of place here, and yet after a while you can't really imagine this film working without it. It's just genius. I couldn't find any flaws in this film, perhaps because I had really low expectations before seeing it, or because I didn't know what to expect. But out of all the films I've seen this year, Uncut Gems is the film that impacted me the most creatively. If Uncut Gems is chaos, then I would say that Parasite is the exact opposite. It is this harmony, this symphony of film language. The film is striving for perfection in every shot. The film is so rich in ideas and their execution that it can be basically analyzed endlessly. Every angle, every prop, and every spoken word often carries a deeper meaning in this film, adding towards its bigger picture theme about the gap between the rich and the poor. So much of this film is constructed to highlight the class differences between the two families. This invisible line that is always present and can never truly be crossed. What I also really liked is that the title itself is ambiguous. Throughout the first half of the film, it appears as if Parasite refers to the Kim family. They are the ones who infiltrate and literally live off the parks. However, as the film progresses, it becomes more and more ambiguous who the real Parasite is. Bong Joon-ho deserves all the credit for this film. His direction is surgical, and the way he manages to combine multiple genres and themes without breaking a sweat. The film basically starts off as a black comedy, then turns into a drama about social differences, and ultimately turns into a thriller like no other. I'm really happy Parasite got recognized and won the Best Picture Oscar this year. I think that along with Birdman, it's one of the few films of the decade that actually deserve the award. I could go on forever about this film. As I said, it can be analyzed endlessly. And perhaps that's its biggest flaw. I'm more interested in analyzing it than enjoying it. And maybe that's also the reason why it's not my favorite film of 2019. This is the reason I go to the cinema. For me, this has been the most powerful cinema experience in years. The cinematography in this film is groundbreaking. Deakins brings us directly into the trenches, and for 2 hours he gives us an uninterrupted experience of war. There's no looking away, there's no relief of a cut, no seeing what waits behind the corner, and the result is a tense film that brings us closer to the terror of war in all its futility and its impact on people as well as the surrounding landscape. However, Sam Mendes manages to mix all of this with a sense of this sad, poetic beauty. Along with Thomas Newman's score, they bring something very human and emotional to the film. Something that for me is missing in these purely technically brilliant and experiential films like Gravity or Dunkirk, both of whom 1917 is often compared to. Beyond all its technicality, there's far more emotional depth in this film that people give it credit for. But what truly elevates this film are its two epic sequences, both of which are examples of film working at its highest level. These moments where the emotional journey of the film just pays off and it becomes something transcendent, where the production design, the effects, the music, the performances, and all the camera work, everything just connects, and the result is an emotional reaction that you will remember forever. The night window scene just completely blew me away. I was in awe. I couldn't believe that ruins of a city could ever be turned into something so haunting and magical at the same time. And then just a few minutes later, we get the 1600 Men scene. Basically the greatest war movie scene since Saving Private Ryan. I was shaking for a full 5 minutes. I had goosebumps. I had tears in my eyes. I was rooting so hard for our main character to make it. Both of these scenes are just cinematic perfection, and there's only a few films per decade that create such sequences that have a lasting impact and make you want to revisit them even a few years later. And for me, 1917 is one of those movies. Thank you very much for watching, and let me know what your personal list would be, or if I missed any of your favorite films. I'm probably gonna be doing my top 10 films of the decade video next, as well as a video about my personal favorite film of the decade. So stay tuned and stay safe in your little home quarantines.